Welcome back. Two particularly critical cases before our nation's highest court this week. In Grants Pass versus Johnson, the justices will decide whether communities have the right to fine or jail a fellow citizen for sleeping on public property. Legal experts tell us if the small Oregon town prevails, it will make it much easier for municipalities across the country to clear out homeless encampments. Also on the Supreme Court docket, Donald Trump's claim of blanket presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for so-called official acts occurring while in office.
A president has to have immunity. If you don't have immunity, you just have a ceremonial president.
Panel, two worthy topics of discussion, so let's get to it. Tomorrow, I know that you've had to intervene and get involved as homeless have moved into several neighborhoods, including your own.
Correct. And I know they're going to have to find somewhere to come up with a happy medium, because what is happening in California, if you go out to L.A., I promise you, you will be rethinking this before you say, oh, no, don't tell the homeless they don't have to be there. So they're going to have to find some kind of healthy medium in here. It's not a crime to be poor, but it is a crime to intrude whatever your life situation is into others. Now, back to the clown with the orange hair. Now, listen, you're going to sit up there and say, if it's an official act, you can't be a president. If you can't have immunity, ain't nobody finna give you immunity so you can kill somebody because they didn't cook your fries right, they didn't cook your hamburger right, so you can do something silly about that. You the last person needs some immunity. That's it.
All right. Look, 90% of our viewers thus far who answered the survey says, yeah, it should be a crime, talking about the homeless. I'm going to go to you, Holly.
Yeah, so I think what's happened in this country is we've skewed the idea of what compassion means, right? And we think compassion means letting anybody do whatever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want. But what's really compassionate in helping people who are homeless isn't just letting them camp in public. Often the people that we see camping in, public spaces are those who are suffering from mental illness or severe drug addiction, and they pose a threat to themselves, to the people around them, and to the public at large. We've seen some of these cases in California. San Francisco has become incredibly unsafe, where you have camping everywhere. People are defecating on the sidewalks and injecting drugs and so forth. It's a very dangerous situation. By making it a crime and giving police a tool to go in and interact with these individuals, they're more apt to be able to get them into some kind of treatment facility. It really is a better solution, better for all of us and for the homeless people involved.
Paul Castor, you have to deal with this every day because of the location of your campus. Thoughts?
Yeah, so we've had to have, unfortunately, a number of times where we've had to call police. There have been individuals who are known to the police who have mental illness and who are possibly dangerous to people around them. And so we have to guard the gates, make sure nobody comes inside. Just last night, my wife and I were at dinner. There was a woman who was standing in the middle of the street yelling and screaming at cars. Talked to the owner of the restaurant. He said that she'd been making the rounds inside and there's nothing that can be done. He just tries to move her off the property and she comes right back on, disturbs people. So the question is, who has the most important right? The person who's doing the thing, or those of us who want to be protected from that thing? And I think that's the thing that's going through today's show.
Okay, Counselor.
This is actually, the issue is an Eighth Amendment issue, is cruel and unusual punishment, and because the city involved in this case doesn't have any facilities for homeless people to live in. And the question for the Supreme Court is it cruel and unusual punishment to find someone who doesn't have a home, to make them a criminal if they don't have a home, and the city doesn't have a facility for them to live in? And does that violate the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment? And that probably is going to be the case, because the Eighth Amendment is a fundamental right. And when you have a limitation on what the government can do, and government doesn't have an alternative, that's probably going to be the case.
I'm going to turn finally to our urban reformer. What's your take on the homeless issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think they estimate it's about 256,000 people that are either homeless or unsheltered, and a bulk of those in like Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. These cities and counties need a tool to be able to deal with homelessness, because it does become an issue for those who live and pay property taxes there and have to deal with it. Because when you look at some of these cities, like Holly mentioned, in San Francisco, there is just the density of homeless people that you have to deal with. It shouldn't be acceptable for anybody choosing to live there. And so, yes, they need to be able to retain that. And I mean, you can go to California and look at Venice Beach, where they have a line in the sand where you have tents that shift from side to side depending on who's enforcing what at what time. And so it's just, it's cruel to them to force them, to allow them to continue that, but it's also cruel to the people who pay to live there.
All right.